First of all, thank you. On behalf of an entire nation, thank you for doing what you're doing. It is no doubt a stressful time for you, well and truly thrown in at the deep end, and I would like in some small way to help you in this precious situation. I teach people across the world how to be both faster, but crucially how to be more effective in their reading. I run whole day workshops on this subject for pharmaceutical firms, law firms, and major financial institutions, and in this short video, I've attempted to distill down some of the content into some practical tips that I hope will help you. First of all, some context. We're all taught to read once in our lives, very early on around the age of 5 or 6. We are given the basic mechanics of reading and then pushed off into the big wide world with an underdeveloped skill. I'm guessing that the volume of reading you have to do has increased since you were 5, and the complexity of the subject matter has no doubt increased as well. There are perhaps not so many tigers coming round for tea, or talking bears. If you're like most adults, you'll read something and then anything from 6 lines in, or worse still, 4 pages in, you look up and think, what the hell was that all about? You know you've been reading because you've felt your eyes moving, and there appears to be some progress on the page, but your mind has probably wandered to anything other than reading. The default response to this mind wandering is to slow down and try rereading. What if I told you that you need to do the complete opposite of that? Our mind works at about 4 times the speed at which we can speak. When we learn to read, it is a slow and deliberate process, one word at a time, and we even say the words out loud at first. As a consequence, we go into our adult life still saying the words in our head and still reading them one word at a time. The problem is that our ability to think starts to increase as we mature. The result of this is that we end up using only a quarter of our thinking power for reading, and the other 3/4 or so of the mind's capacity starts wandering off and thinking about anything other than reading. When we start to read faster and closer to the speed of thought, we close the gap. We use more of the brain's capacity for the activity we are doing, and as a result, the mind has less chance to wander. Within reason, in any activity you are doing, speed gives you focus, and from focus you actually get better comprehension of what you are reading. Think about driving. It is statistically more likely that you will have a crash in the last 5 minutes of a 4-hour journey. You are suddenly on a road you know, doing 5 miles an hour, and your chief concern is that there going to be a parking space. Then bang, you're in the back of someone, or you've clipped a wing mirror. Now imagine that you woke up suddenly doing 120 miles an hour, already halfway around a racetrack. Your only focus would be how to keep the car on the road. The reason you are where you are and that you have passed your exams is because you have a Formula One race car mind, but are probably driving it like an 1100cc VW Polo. You've probably experienced this with the speed setting on things you listen to like Audible or YouTube. You may even have sped up this video. You can comfortably up the speed, and the faster speed actually helps you concentrate better. If you have used this to speed up your listening, why not apply the same process to your reading? So how do we read faster? The first thing we need to do is control where our eye looks on the page. Let's talk about controlling where the eye looks on the page when you're reading. The human eye is very ill-disciplined. It is like a magpie looking for shiny object words on the page. Our eye darts about because we have an inbuilt mechanism for tracking movement in our peripheral vision. This is to help us scan our surroundings for danger and to hunt for food. I'm hoping that there aren't many lions and tigers wandering around the hospital you're working in, and you're not having to catch and kill your food on top of everything else. So we need to learn to control the eye so it looks where we tell it to. When we learn to read, we use our finger as a pointer. This helps us to stay focused on the word we are reading. We then drop this in our adult life and think anyone who uses their finger to read should possibly never have graduated. Pause this video and pick up the nearest bit of text you can find and use your finger to trace the line of text that you're reading. Do this for about a paragraph or two. It will have felt weird and a bit like you were back at school, but you will have also noticed that your eye didn't wander like a magpie looking for shiny object words on the page. Instead, it stays focused on the line of text it is meant to be reading. Remember, text tends to make the most sense when it is read in the exact order it came out on the page. If you continue to practice reading by using a pointer for the next few weeks, you can use a pen if you would prefer instead of your finger. Over time, you will gain control of where your eye is looking on the page, and you will no longer need the pointer. If you get some funny looks, so what if it means you understand what you are reading by staying better focused? Now that you have more control over where your eye is looking, we need to look at the voluntary regression. When you are reading something and it doesn't make sense, the default reaction is to go back and read it again. This is the moment late at night when you're reading a novel and you think, who the hell is George? I don't know this character, what have I missed? So you go back desperately trying to find George, but you never do. It's often only when you turn the page and find out that George is either an incidental character or they're about to come into the story in full. Counterintuitive though this may seem to you, the next time you're reading something and it doesn't make sense, don't go back, Make a mental or even physical note of the bit you didn't understand, and then try reading the next paragraph. 9 times out of 10, the bit you didn't understand becomes clear. Most of the time we haven't missed something, we just haven't yet been told it. You probably all have the pause and rewind TV like Netflix, although you're probably not getting much chance to watch it at the moment. I hate being able to pause and rewind because it means it takes about 4.5 hours to watch Silent Witness in my house. Just pause it a second. Who's he? It's often only when we watch the next scene that the previous one gets context. What is the worst that can happen? You take 5 seconds to read the next paragraph and you don't get the answer? Well, at least you know now this is a highly valid regression. You really have missed something, and you know it is worth rereading. The next thing we need to look at is to try and read more than one word at a time. We all remember a variant of "the cat sat on the mat" from school. We're taught to read one word at a time, and then we take this into our adult life. The problem is that this is too slow. Our bright mind gets bored and it starts to wander. Reading one word at a time also starves us of context and the semantic meaning of the word. To see this in action, just misspell something on Google and watch how Google uses the words around your misspelled one to show you the results that it thinks you were looking for. The more words you force yourself to take in at a time, the quicker you'll read and the quicker you'll get the context of the words. Think about how newspapers are printed in columns. 3 to 5 words at a time makes it easier to read as we are forced to chunk the words. To practice this skill, you can force your pointer, your finger or your pen, across the page quicker, and you could pick up a newspaper for 5 minutes and read it as fast as you can. This will train your brain to start taking in bigger pieces of information. The final thing we can do is try and minimize the voice in our head while we are reading. Hopefully you are hearing your own voice and not someone else's. Because we are taught to read out loud, we then go into our adult lives saying every word in our head. If we can only read as fast as we can speak, but we can think about 4 times faster than that, as a result our mind will once again wander. One thing that will help you to say less words as you read is chunking and forcing yourself to take in more words at one time. You'll never stop yourself speaking the words out in your head and you shouldn't worry about this, but the more words you try and take in at a time, the less you will be saying. This will move your reading speed away from your speaking speed and closer to your thinking speed, and as a result your mind will again wander less. Finally, although this will feel weird, you can place the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth whilst you're reading. We often form words in our mouth with our tongue without realising. By placing the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth, you will be able to read faster and concentrate better. Which leads us on to concentration. You are under high pressure at the moment, and this makes you tense. Being tense is not conducive to good concentration. When we are tense, we tend to raise our fear sensors, they get activated, and we go into fight or flight mode. The biggest single thing you can do to help you concentrate is to relax. Not an easy thing to do when you're under pressure. Before you're going to read anything, count backwards from 10 and then try to slow your breathing for this 10 seconds. When you start to read, you'll be slightly more relaxed and this will actually help you absorb the information better. Finally, another technique that will help with your understanding but will also relax you is to preview what you're about to read. You could just let your eyes scan lightly across the page, or you could read the first and last paragraph and maybe the first sentence of every other paragraph. Think of this like running a TripAdvisor over the text before you start reading. Doing this will help relax you, and it will also give you a high-level overview of what you're about to read. I hope that some of these tips will help you. The best thing to do is build one skill at a time, and I would start by laser guiding your eye and keeping it focused on the line it is meant to be reading. Good luck, and thank you again for the amazing work that you are doing.